The universe feels like it should have an edge, a final border, a place where everything simply stops. But there is no wall, no boundary, no end waiting out there in the distance. And the reason why is not just strange. It breaks the way your mind understands reality itself. Right now, your brain is trying to picture it, a massive space, maybe stretching forever, or maybe surrounded by something larger. Some kind of outside, that instinct feels natural, it feels obvious, but it is also completely wrong. The real explanation is far more unsettling than the idea of infinite space, because it removes something your mind depends on, a frame, a background, a place where things exist. Humans expect limits. Everything in your daily life has edges. A room has walls. A road has an end. Even the sky feels like a dome above you. Your brain has been trained since birth to understand the world through boundaries. Objects exist because they are separate from something else. There is always an inside and outside. So when you think about the universe, your mind asks a simple question. If everything exists, where is it? What is it inside? Of that question sounds logical, it sounds unavoidable, but it hides a deep assumption that most people never notice. It assumes that space itself needs a container, that the universe must sit inside something bigger. This is where reality begins to break, because according to modern physics, the universe is not inside anything. There is no outer space beyond space, no larger box holding everything together. The idea of an edge does not fail because we have not found it yet. It fails because it does not exist in the way your mind expects. Even more surprising, the universe might not be infinite in the way people think. It could be finite, limited in size and still have no edge at all. That sounds impossible, but it is one of the most serious ideas in cosmology. Physicists like Brian Greene have spent decades explaining this exact problem. Not because it is a small detail, but because it sits at the foundation of how reality works. When you remove the idea of an edge, you are forced to rethink space itself. You are forced to accept that the universe does not behave like any object you have ever experienced. There is another hidden detail that makes this even more disturbing. The edge you think you see in the universe already exists, but it is not real. It is an illusion created by limits and how far we can observe. Light takes time to travel. The universe has a finite age, so there is a distance beyond which we simply cannot see. This creates a kind of horizon, a boundary that looks like an edge, but it is not a physical border. It is just the limit of what information can reach us. Beyond that horizon, the universe continues, maybe endlessly, maybe in a shape that bends back on itself, but we cannot directly observe it. This means something very strange. The universe might have a size, a structure, a shape, but no edge you could ever reach. If you tried to travel in a straight line forever, you might never hit a wall. You might never fall off anything. There may be no final boundary waiting for you. The concept itself may not apply. This goes against everything your mind expects, because your mind relies on contrast, on separation, on the idea that things exist in relation to something else. But the universe does not follow that rule. It is not placed inside a larger space. It does not expand into an empty void. It does not have a surrounding environment. It defines all possible positions. It is the stage and the actors at the same time. That is why the question feels so difficult. Not because it is complicated, but because it is misleading. It uses the logic of everyday life to describe something that exists beyond everyday experience. The deeper scientists go into this problem, the clearer it becomes. The universe does not have an edge because the concept of an edge requires something outside. And there is no outside. This is not just a theory. It comes from our best understanding of gravity, space, and the large-scale structure of the cosmos. The equations that describe the universe do not require a boundary. In many solutions, space curves in ways that remove edges completely. This is where things begin to feel truly uncomfortable, because once you accept that the universe has no edge, a new question appears. Not where does it end, but how does it exist at all without a frame? That question leads to even deeper ideas. Ideas about curved space, about dimensions beyond what we can see, about a universe that may loop back on itself in ways that are impossible to visualize. And yet, all of this comes from trying to answer a simple question: where is the edge? In this video, you will see why that question leads to a completely different picture of reality. You will understand why the universe does not need an edge. why space itself behaves in ways that defy intuition, and why the true structure of the cosmos is far more strange than the idea of endless emptiness. By the end, the way you think about space will change. The idea of inside and outside will start to lose meaning. And the universe will no longer feel like a place that exists somewhere. It will feel like something much harder to define. Welcome to the channel. Subscribe now, because the deeper you go into this topic, the more reality starts to shift in ways you never expected. Your brain was not built to understand the universe. It was built to survive on Earth. Every second of your life reinforces one simple rule. Everything has a boundary. A cup has edges, a table ends, a room is enclosed by walls. Even the horizon feels like a line where the world stops. This pattern is so strong that your mind treats it as a law of reality. This is where the problem begins. Because when you think about the universe, your brain quietly applies the same rule. It assumes there must be a limit, a final edge, a place where everything ends and something else begins. But that assumption does not come from physics. It comes from evolution. Your ancestors needed to recognize objects quickly. A rock, a tree, a predator, clear boundaries meant survival. The brain became very good at separating things from their surroundings. It learned to define objects by their edges. Over time, this way of thinking became automatic. You do not question it. You trust it. So when you hear that the universe is expanding, your mind instantly creates a picture. A giant bubble growing larger and larger inside an empty space. Something like a balloon inflating in a dark room. This image feels correct. It feels logical, but it is deeply misleading because it contains a hidden assumption that most people never notice. The assumption is that space itself needs somewhere to exist, that it must expand into something, that there is an outside waiting beyond the universe. This idea is so natural that it feels impossible to reject. If the universe is growing, there must be extra space around it. That seems obvious. But this is exactly where intuition fails. In reality, there is no evidence for any external space, no measurements, no observer, no physical theory that requires a container outside the universe. Even more surprising, the concept itself breaks down under closer inspection. If there were an outside, it would have to exist somewhere, but that somewhere would already be part of space, which means it would not truly be outside at all. It would just be more universe. This creates a strange loop. The moment you try to define an outside, it becomes inside. This is not just a philosophical trick. It is a real limitation of how space works. Physics describes space as something that does not sit inside anything else. It is not like air filling a room. It is the structure that defines all positions and distances. Without it, there is no location, no direction, no place for anything to exist. So the idea that space needs a container is not just wrong, it is meaningless. Yet your brain keeps returning to it. It keeps trying to place the universe somewhere. It keeps searching for a boundary. This tension between intuition and reality is the first barrier to understanding the cosmos. Because the universe does not behave like an object, it does not have an edge in the way your mind expects, and it does not exist inside a larger space. To move forward, that instinct has to be challenged. Otherwise, every explanation that follows will feel incomplete or even impossible. And this becomes even more confusing when you look at how the universe actually began and expanded. Most people think the universe began like an explosion, a single point, a violent burst, matter flying outward into empty space. That image is everywhere. It feels dramatic. It feels easy to understand, but it is also completely wrong. The Big Bang was not an explosion in space. It was the expansion of space itself. That difference changes everything. In an explosion, there is a center, a location where it starts. Debris moves away, in that point into a surrounding area. There is always a before and an after, a place where the explosion happens and a space where things spread into. But the universe does not follow that pattern. There is no central point where everything began, no special location you could travel to and say this is where it all started. Every point in the universe was part of the beginning. Every region of space expanded at the same time. This creates a strange effect. No matter where you are, it looks like everything is moving away from you. Galaxies in every direction appear to be receding. The farther they are, the faster they move away. This is not because you are at the center, it is because space itself is stretching between everything. This was first discovered through careful observations of distant galaxies. Their light shifts toward the red end of the spectrum. This shift increases with distance. It is not random. It follows a clear pattern. The deeper scientists looked, the clearer it became. The universe is expanding everywhere, not from a single point. Here is where intuition begins to break again. If everything is moving apart, it feels like there must be a center somewhere, a hidden origin point. But there is none. The expansion has no preferred location. A simple analogy helps, but it also has limits. Think of the surface of a sphere. Only the surface, not the inside. Now imagine that surface expanding. Every point moves away from every other point. If you stand on that surface, it looks like you are at the center of the expansion, but so does every other point. There is no center on the surface itself. The key detail is easy to miss. The expansion happens within the surface, not from a point on it. Our universe behaves in a similar way, but in 3 dimensions instead of 2. Space itself stretches, distances grow, but there's no external direction where it expands into. This leads to a lesser known and deeply unsettling fact. The universe was once much smaller, not because matter was packed into a tiny region of space, but because space itself was compressed. Every location was closer to every other location. The entire observable universe was once smaller than an atom. This does not mean everything was sitting inside a tiny ball floating in emptiness. It means space itself had a different scale, a different structure. As it expanded, it carried everything with it. Galaxies did not move through space like bullets. Space grew between them. This is why the idea of an edge starts to fall apart. If the universe were expanding into something, there would be a boundary, a front where expansion meets empty space. But no such boundary has ever been found. No signal, no distortion, no sign of a cosmic edge pushing outward. Instead, the expansion looks the same in every direction. Smooth, uniform, endless. And this raises an even deeper question about the shape and limits of space itself. There is a possibility that sounds impossible at first. The universe might be finite, it might have a total size, and still have no edge at all. This goes against one of the strongest ideas in your mind. Finite means limited. Limited means there must be a boundary, a final line where something stops. But in the universe, that rule does not always apply. A simple example begins to shift this idea. Think about the surface of a sphere, not the inside. Only the surface itself. It has a limited area. You could measure it, you could calculate its size, but there is no edge anywhere on that surface. You can move in any direction. You will never fall off. You will never hit a boundary. Every path continues smoothly. If you keep traveling long enough, something strange happens. You return to where you started, not because you turned around. But Becca, see, the space itself curves back on itself. This is not just a trick of geometry. It is a real possibility for the structure of the universe. In this case, space would be closed, not infinite, not endless in size, but without edges. Every direction leads somewhere. Every path is continuous. This idea becomes even more unsettling when extended to 3 dimensions. Our universe is not a flat surface. It has depth, volume, 3 dimensions of space, but those dimensions can also be curved in ways that are hard to visualize. Curvature does not require something to bend into. It does not need a higher space to fold inside. It is a property of space itself. This is one of the key insights from modern physics. Space is not rigid. It can stretch. It can curve. It can connect in ways that break normal intuition. In some models, the universe behaves like a 3-dimensional version of that sphere, finite volume. No edges, no boundaries, just continuous space that loops in on itself. There are even more complex possibilities. Space could have shapes that twist and reconnect. Paths that seem straight might actually be part of a larger loop. Light could travel in one direction and eventually return from behind. This leads to a surprising consequence. If the universe is shaped this way, there could be multiple paths between 2 points. Light from a distant galaxy could reach you from different directions after traveling along different routes through curved space. Scientists have searched for signs of this effect, patterns in the cosmic background, repeated structures, matching signals coming from opposite sides of the sky. So far, no clear evidence has been confirmed, but the possibility remains open. Another lesser-known detail makes this even more strange. If the universe is finite and curved, its total size might still be far larger than what we can observe, the observable Geon could be just a small patch of a much bigger structure, like standing on a vast surface and only seeing a tiny part of it. This means the universe could wrap around itself far beyond our view, a closed system that appears open simply because we cannot see the full shape. This challenges a deep belief that finite space must have edges, that something must lie beyond. In reality, there may be no beyond, just a structure that connects back into itself, and once this idea is accepted, an even more difficult question begins to form. Not where the universe ends, but what space really is, if it can exist like this at all. The question feels simple. If the universe exists, then where is it? What lies outside it? That question sounds logical, but it carries a hidden flaw that changes everything. It assumes that the universe is inside something. This assumption works for every object you know. A cup sits on a table. The table sits in a room. The room sits inside a building. Every layer exists within a larger one. This pattern feels universal, but space does not follow that rule. Space is not an object. It is not a thing placed somewhere. It is the system that allows anything to have a location at all. Without space, there is no position, no direction, no distance, no way to say where something is. This leads to a disturbing realization. Asking what is outside the universe may be meaningless, not because the answer is unknown, but because the question itself breaks the rules of reality. To be outside something, there must be a space where that outside exists, but if space is already the framework of all positions, then there is no external region left to define. There is no higher level container waiting beyond it. This removes one of the most basic ideas your mind depends on. The idea of inside and outside. Those concepts only work when there is a boundary separating two regions. But if the universe includes all of space, then there is no second region to compare it to, no outer layer, no external reference. This is where logic begins to feel unstable. Your brain keeps trying to step outside the universe and look back at it. But there is no place to stand, no viewpoint beyond space. Every possible position is already part of the system you are trying to observe. Even language starts to fail here. Words like beyond, outside, and surrounding lose their meaning. They depend on spatial relationships that no longer apply. This idea is not just abstract. It comes directly from the way physics describes reality. In modern theory, space is not a passive background. It is active, it can stretch, it can curve, it can carry energy, it interacts with matter and time, it evolves. In fact, space and time are combined into a single structure called spacetime. They are not separate. They define the entire stage on which the universe exists. There's no deeper stage beneath it. This leads to a lesser known and deeply unsettling consequence. The universe does not sit somewhere. It does not exist inside a larger environment. It is the environment, it is the full set of all possible locations. Every galaxy, every star, every particle exists within this structure, and there's nothing beyond it that we can point to or describe using current physics. This breaks container-based thinking completely. There is no box holding the universe, no empty void surrounding it, no external space waiting for it to expand into. Instead, when the universe expands, space itself changes, distances grow. The structure evolves, but it does not move into anything. It does not push against a boundary. It simply becomes larger in its own terms. This is one of the hardest ideas to accept because it removes the need for an outside entirely. And once that idea settles in, a new limit begins to appear, not a physical edge, but a boundary in what we are able to observe and understand. There is a boundary in the universe that feels very real. It looks like an edge, it acts like an edge, but it is not an edge at all. It is called the observable universe. This is the region of space we can actually see. Everything inside it has had enough time to send light to us since the beginning of cosmic expansion. Everything beyond it is hidden, not because it does not exist, but because its light has not reached us yet. This limit comes from a simple fact. Light does not travel instantly. It has a fixed speed, about 300,000 kilometers per second. That sounds incredibly fast, but on cosmic scales, it is slow. The universe is about 13.8 billion years old. So it seems like we should only be able to see objects up to 13.8 billion light years away, but the real number is much larger because while light was traveling toward us, space itself was expanding. Distances stretched, objects moved farther away. So the edge of the observable universe is now about 93 billion light years across. That number is difficult to grasp, but it reveals something important. The boundary we see is not where the universe ends, it is where our vision ends. Beyond that limit, there could be more galaxies, more structures, possibly an endless continuation of space, or something far stranger. This creates a powerful illusion. When scientists map the universe, they often draw a sphere around us, a visible region with a clear edge. It looks like we are at the center of everything, but that is not true. Every observer, anywhere in the universe, would see a similar sphere around them. Each one would feel like the center of their own observable region. This is not because they are special. It is because of how light and time work together. This means the universe does not have a psi, niggle visible edge. It has many overlapping horizons, each tied to a specific observer. There is another lesser known detail that makes this even more unsettling. Some regions of the universe are moving away from us faster than the speed of light. Not because they are breaking the laws of physics, but because space itself is expanding between us and them. This expansion can stretch distances so quickly that light emitted today will never reach us. This creates a permanent barrier. There are galaxies that we will never see, no matter how long we wait. Their light is trapped on the other side of an expanding horizon. They exist, they evolve, but they are forever hidden from us. So the boundary of the observable universe is not fixed. It changes over time. Some regions come into view as their light finally arrives. Others fade away as expansion pushes them beyond reach. This makes the idea of an edge even more confusing. The boundary we detect is not a wall in space. It is a moving limit based on time, distance, and the speed of light. It is shaped by the history of the universe itself. And beyond it, reality continues in ways we cannot directly test. The universe could be vastly larger than what we see. It could stretch far beyond our horizon, repeating patterns or forming structures we have never imagined. It could even loop back on itself in ways that hide its true shape. But from where we stand, there is a limit we cannot cross. Not with technology, not with observation, not even with light itself. And this raises a deeper problem. If we can only see a small part of the universe, how can we ever know its true structure? How can we be sure it has no edge at all? At the deepest level, the problem is not the universe. It is the way we think about it. The search for an edge assumes that reality needs a frame, a background, a larger stage where everything takes place. But there may be no such stage at all. There may be no ultimate boundary, no final border, no external reference point you could step into and look back from. The universe might be completely self-contained. This idea feels uncomfortable because it removes something fundamental, a sense of placement, a sense that things exist somewhere inside something else. That structure is built into human thinking. But physics keeps pointing in a different direction. The equations that describe the universe do not require an outside. They do not point to a larger container. They describe a system that is complete on its own. A structure where every point, every direction, every distance is defined internally. Nothing is missing beyond it. This leads to a strange shift in perspective. Instead of asking where the universe is, the question becomes irrelevant. Location only makes sense inside space, but space itself is the thing being described. There is no higher coordinate system to place it within. This removes the idea of a cosmic background. In everyday life, everything is measured against something else. Motion is defined relative to a surface, position is defined relative to a reference point, but at the scale of the universe, there may be no external reference at all. All motion becomes relative within the system. All positions are defined by relationships between objects inside it. There is no absolute outside perspective. This is one of the most radical ideas in modern science. It suggests that reality does not sit on top of anything. It does not rest inside a larger structure. It simply exists as a complete and self-defining system. There is another detail that makes this even more difficult to accept. Human intuition is built from limited experience, small distances, slow speeds, solid objects, clear boundaries. None of these conditions apply at the scale of the universe. So when the mind tries to understand reality, it reaches for familiar patterns, containers, edges, backgrounds. but these patterns break down under extreme conditions. The universe does not follow human intuition. It follows deeper rules that often feel unnatural. This is why the question of an edge becomes misleading. It assumes that the universe behaves like an object, that it must have a boundary separating it from something else. But if there is no something else, the concept loses meaning. The question itself may be flawed. Instead of asking where the universe ends, a more accurate approach is to ask how space is structured, how it curves, how it expands, how it connects. These questions lead to answers that do not rely on edges or external frames. They reveal a reality where borders are not required, where existence does not depend on a surrounding environment, where the universe defines its own rules from within. This changes the way everything is understood. The universe is not a thing inside a place, it is the place. It is the full set of all possible locations, all distances, all directions. There is nothing beyond it that we can describe using the language of space. And once that idea settles in, the need for an edge disappears completely, replaced by something far more unsettling. The universe has no edge. Not because it stretches forever into some endless emptiness, but because the idea of an edge does not apply at all. Every step in this journey leads to the same realization. The problem was never finding the boundary. The problem was assuming one had to exist. Space does not expand into anything. It does not push into a larger void. It does not grow inside a hidden container. It simply expands. Distances increase. The structure changes, but there is no outside waiting beyond it. That is the real shift. The universe is not sitting somewhere. It is not placed inside a bigger reality. It is the full system, the total framework. Everything that can have a position exists within it. There is nothing beyond it that can be described using space at all. This idea feels unsettling because it removes something familiar, a sense of direction, a sense of placement, a sense that there is always something more outside the frame. But here, the frame is all there is. Even the edge we think we see is not real. It is only the limit of what light has reached. Beyond that, the universe continues in ways we cannot directly observe. It could be far larger, it could curve back on itself, it could extend endlessly, but none of those possibilities require an edge, and that is the final break from intuition. Reality does not need borders to exist. It does not need a background to sit on. It does not need an outside to define it. It simply is. The more this idea sinks in, the more it changes how existence itself is understood, not as something inside a place, but as the place itself. If this shifted your perspective even slightly, then you are starting to see the universe the way physics describes it. Like the video, if you found it interesting, subscribe for more deep explorations like this, because the deeper you go, the stranger reality becomes.